Right, so hi everybody, I'm Simon Briggs, as I'm sure you can all read. I work for SUSE, and I'm an enthusiastic fan of open source, bit of a fanboy of it in general, and my interest obviously is now in OpenStack. So that's part of why I got a role being the EMEA pre-sales contact for OpenStack and our solution or distribution of it in SUSE Cloud 4. So what I'm going to talk to you about this afternoon is a further exploration of subjects you've already actually discussed or listened to in the plenaries, keynotes, etc. So this concept that the world's changing, we have to change the way we've done things. Because the world's changing, we're at a moment where we reflect on how we used to do things. And what organizations certainly are saying to us and what we perceive to understand within the market is one of the big fears is that whilst the world's changing, if you make the wrong choice as you did traditionally, you might actually end up going pop. And organizations obviously don't want to do that. So there's a lot about open source which actually defends against that, and hence the title, how an open source cloud will keep your options open, avoiding that lock-in. Hi guys, just keep motoring down, informal session. I like this, I saw it on the web, I had to use it. We all talk cloud, and at times we wonder what the bloody hell people are talking about, and it's quite shocking. But actually, in reality, there's a lot about cloud that makes a lot of sense. And because of that, we do want to talk about it. Hence, so many people turning up to an event like this. I just think this is fantastic. And there's multiple rooms along here full of as many people. It was just a brilliant session. Thank you very much to everyone who organised it and worked on it. And the reason why there's great value in there is ultimately people can see a better way of doing things. But with better ways of doing things, the costs and better agility matrix may change. But there's always a fear. There's always a fear that there is an opportunity cost involved in investing in these things. And certainly areas that are very important to our customer base, who are, after all, enterprises, trying to control how they do things in the best manner for their organizations, are areas of control and security. So this conversation being played out might actually, if you're from an enterprise or have ever worked in an enterprise, make a lot of sense to you. So the guy in a tie often walks up to an IT manager and says, "I want." And the IT manager traditionally always had to say, "Okay, but I've got limited resources, I've got limited timescales, you have to fall in line with all the other requirements, things won't be as quick as maybe you expect." The IT manager often doesn't understand a good picture of what redundancies in that organization to take up the slack that's being asked for. It's very hard for him to picture that. And the idea of consumption models as a cost internally was just ridiculous, to say the least. And essentially, IT managers often would have to say, "No way, Jose." Now, with the merits of what we're looking at here and why we were talking about the themes of what people want to achieve, the conversation can change, and you can become a Superman if you're in that role now. They want it faster. They've got used to an internet that gives them everything when they want it. They've got smartphones. They're able to book things online straight away. Consume, consume, consume. Okay, so it's very good. This person's suddenly got a cloud. He's able to react straight away. When asked how much, he's got a certain model that he can take to that customer, so everyone can work out costings. This sounds like heaven, doesn't it? That's very annoying. Give me a second. Yeah. If only I had a cloud to get around that. I've got one in my pocket. That's it. this halcyon heaven view suddenly becomes even better. We're able to expand and shrink when people require. So the cost model is only being paid for when they're consuming it. Things can get a bit messy at that point because you've become a Superman in your organization. Now, yeah, that's a great idea, and that's all our ideals working in the OpenStack community and with the different distributions that you've got here. But there is a reality there. By the way, I have used a cat and a dog in this because apparently they make the audience friendly. So always throw them in. It's a good idea for your presenting. But what essentially you need to do is protect and work with the investments an IT organization already have. It's been talked about earlier. But you're not going to throw away millions of pounds of architecture just because you want the halcyon view that you've got before. Your company will go bankrupt. That's what will happen. So you have to build upon what you've got. Now, open source can be your friend in this. It can avoid those lock-ins. In the organization, they're looking for cost savings, but the open source standards achieve a lack of lock-in for you. You are portable. A lot of people are fearful at the moment. They don't want to make the leap. But when I get a chance to talk to them and explain to them, you have a genuine capability to port what you have. You are not locking yourself in because you're using these kind of technologies. It's actually the very core of what we do in open source world and the flexibility. Yes, there's some concerns, but I've been fighting against those concerns for years, selling Linux. SUSE has, Red Hat has. We've all been trying to convince the market, and hey, what, we won on Linux. Why would we not win on an OpenStack platform? The biggest banks in the world, your air traffic control that flew you here, all these kind of businesses, big automotive manufacturers, big defense contractors, they're all running Linux in their organizations, and they're all starting to look into the capabilities of OpenStack. Now, a little basic. Now, I didn't know whether to include these slides, but some of you might be new to it. You might be thinking, I've heard about this, I just really need to find out the basics to understand if it's for me. So very quickly, there's different qualities of clouds out there for organizations to look at and utilize, or even you as an individual. At the lowest level, infrastructure as a service is what it says on the tin. All these acronyms work at the end of the day. And really, the best way of explaining is the kind of services you may have come across. So yes, Rackspace is in there. Now, internally, in a private cloud, as against the public space cloud, you have different capabilities there. So VMware Cloud, our cloud, Red Hat's cloud. It's all available internally. Moving up the stack, platform as a service. Well, that's where developers want to be able to build on their environment. And yeah, you can go out to Windows Azure, and you can work internally with different platforms. We highlight WSO2 as we've got a big partnership with them, and they're a key player with SUSE. So what does that actually mean in the public arena? Effectively, if you look at the different pieces that come together to deliver a service, which is after all what you're building this for, then in the infrastructure as a service, you're effectively going up to the hypervisor layer and then building upon it. Platform as a service up to the runtime, and then software as a service, you're actually consuming that application. Now, that's a bit basic, but obviously it's the same world for private clouds as well, which OpenStack really does excel in for organizations. But it's IT working with the line of business. So a lot of organizations are looking at this technology effectively to become a cloud provider internally to their own customer, who is their line of business. And that's a key differentiation there. Guess what? SUSE have solutions across that infrastructure. And if you'd so like, there is reasons I will go into that help you work with them. On a public cloud, it's quite obvious. We work as the guest OS. So on all these big vendor platforms, you'll be able to go out and purchase our capability. being annoying. I should speak quicker and get finished, eh? Right. But we're not really there to talk about the public platforms in my discussion. We're talking about OpenStack here. That's what interests you all. And SUSE, like the other vendors, Platinum, member of the foundation, obviously Alan spoke to you early on today, we really believe in this stuff and we're pushing it and putting our people towards it, etc. And there's reasons why we believe it that have been gone into earlier, and it's really quite tedious to keep repeating them. But importantly, our commitment is real in several different areas, and we think you're making the right choice by at least evaluating whether this suits what you need to do. Okay? And there's a few use cases we've come up against which really stand out. So there's some great ones earlier in Eric's presentation I was lucky enough to sit in. Slightly different, some ones I haven't really thought about. VDI delivery, very good idea. Might be borrowing that and talking to the company. But we've got different customers looking at things in different ways and really calling out those kind of environments. Cloud is not a solution that will suit every use case. It was mentioned earlier, I think in HP's conversation with Boris, that your need is really what you have to build your cloud towards, and it will only do certain things. You can't expect it to solve the world's problems. It will only be able to deliver against what it's good at delivering on. And particularly at the moment, we're seeing a lot of interest around the pre-production type of development platforms for internal users in companies. So where we've got a lot of DevOps type scenarios, and then we also see people being a bit more imaginative and working even further out and thinking about actually delivering applications to their customers. Okay, so just that's there really to give you a heads up. Think about your use case. Think about how it's going to give you value. It was said earlier today by Red Hat that this thing's terribly complex. I think personally, I'm taking it that was a little bit of a language barrier thing. I think they were saying, really concentrate when you plan to use this, know what you want to achieve, and then deliver it. Because I don't believe it's that complex when you work with vendors like ourselves and Red Hat and others to get things up and working very quickly. So, standard OpenStack distribution chart. How many people here know this and don't want me to go through it in any great detail? You have to raise your hands or else I'll go through it in great detail. Is there enough? Is there people who desperately want to go through each one of these pieces? No, right. That's the audience. We can talk about it later. Come and see me. That's an invite. Okay, so we've got a solution based on that. And what we're doing is working through and putting the SUSE green across elements of that to make life easier. On the left-hand side, we've got the install framework. And that's what I mean about actually delivering these things don't take long. I don't know if any of you saw that over in Atlanta, the OpenStack convention, SUSE actually won a little medal. And that was for delivering an OpenStack fully performant cloud the quickest. And it took us 3 minutes or something, or 2 minutes 45 or something like that. Actually, if you stand it up and get ready, it's not that long to deliver at all. But we use some very clever capability in there and have designed it to make it easy for you to consume. We don't think as customers you need to sit there working out how the heck you're going to install this. It's a complicated beast underneath. We abstract you away from that and make it easy to deliver. Not everyone's use case will suit that predefined installation routine. And you've got the flexibility of open source to go in and change it, but it does work. It works very quickly and powerfully. Okay, so we've also got in there Zen and KVM. I spoke to 3 organizations so far today that are still very, very, very committed to Zen. 4 really, because SUSE's here as well, and we're very committed to Zen. I'm seeing people nod heads. It's a very important hypervisor. and has a lot of power involved in it. And you can utilize that in our platform. KVM, yeah, it's the bit of the new style. Bloody hell. I should go into cancelling it, but I don't want to sit there doing that instead of messing around. So if we look further into it, we've also made things highly available. HP, Boris called it out. There's quite a lot of components in this framework that if one of them were to go pop, as an enterprise, you'd be struggling to stand up this environment. So it is important. It's a capability. SUSE do see themselves as a genuine leader in the high availability on Linux platforms. Might be a revelation to people. We're not brilliant at shouting from the rooftops like our competitors, but we are very, very good at high availability. It's a key capability of our platform. And it's very cheap compared to the opposition. And then we work with partners, and that's the important message we've got. We are very open about doing open source. You see there suddenly VMware Hyper-V. Nobody else who's talking to you at the moment has given you a selection of 4 hypervisors for you to choose from. Okay? That's our determination to make sure that you don't have to throw away your infrastructure or build new. You can actually work with what you already know, leverage your skills, avoid that vendor lock-in, but keep moving forward with the investments you've got already. So, a quick marketing type slide. We're very lovely. We do an OpenStack distribution. Hopefully you've kind of got that from my discussion already. We have brought out in SUSE Cloud 4, fully supported Ceph distribution. Ceph really is a very exciting project, and the capabilities within it, the high availability of it, and its use cases are really interesting, and dive into it. You know, if you go away and do OpenStack anywhere else in the world, do get into Ceph. Have a good look at it and understand what it'll do for you. Very interesting technology. Was there a question or? Go on. No? Obviously, we've got award-winning support, but who hasn't? Effectively, our installation is so easy because we have taken the pieces, all those spinning parts, and I don't know if anyone's seen the old architectural drawing for Havana and the earlier distributions, where there's, I don't know, so many different lines on it, it looks like spaghetti. We've taken all those bits and we've boiled them into pieces. So we have a build server, effectively, which is our administration server. It's only really for the build case. You don't necessarily have to have it highly available because all you do is build a new one and it runs. We have all the other pieces with high availability that have been earlier pointed out. And of course, what we're bringing to this is exactly what we did with Linux in the beginning. We're making it standardized. We're making it so you can consume it as businesses without taking on the risk and burden of having to standardize it for yourselves and having to learn the awkward way, find information from the community that is not responding quickly, blah, blah, blah. We've got that mixed cloud compute capability. Something that gets overridden here and not really drawn out in a lot of conversations, what you're doing by pinning your solution into a supported Linux vendors platform, you're actually also getting vicariously all the work we've done with our independent software vendors. So SUSE's got a vast array, very powerful array of many partners who deliver their services on top, the thing you actually want to buy at the end of the day and consume. And we can bring that to your cloud straight away. There's no need for you to evaluate it, no need for that vendor to sit there and actually tick the box to say it's validated architecture for their solution. It's already there. It's based on SUSE Linux. And of course, we're doing a lot with third-party APIs. So we work very closely with VMware. for their integration, etc. You've probably got the theme as I've been talking that we quite like partnership in SUSE. We don't think we want to become a single stack that you go to and we solve every question you've got in IT. You know, that's for other organizations of different colors. That's a good shout. Trouble is, when you're in front of a crowd, you don't really think too clearly apart from what you're presenting. Thank you. Wants to call out WSO2, Platform as a Service. So not only can we deliver the OpenStack cloud easily for you, you can then build your infrastructure. So as an organization or a partner who's going forward and selling the services onto other organizations, you can build the platforms you need very quickly. We're very close to all the hardware vendors. That's very important in this area. There's a lot of hardware exploits that I didn't even know about, talking to Intel guys, Cisco guys, etc. And we've got some really powerful relationships there for you. We also have pieces in that stack that we invested in a long time ago, and actually they fit so nicely it's become kind of hand in glove, which is a phrase the English use a lot. I hope it translates. It's very closely tied. And effectively, we can build or offer you the capability to build Linux virtual machines for your catalog to go into your internal cloud infrastructure as a service very effectively, very quickly, and in a completely WYSIWYG, easy-to-consume manner. And that's SUSE Studio. I don't know if any of you have been on SUSEstudio.com. I would advise you to do it. You'd be absolutely mesmerized. It's fantastic if you haven't yet gone on it. Who knows, you might become an open source user like me that gets that box flying up all the time. Again, we can link it in the formats of the delivery down. It's a cloud service. We can have an internal service for you as well. Depending on the size of the organization, that can often be relevant. So we do sell the product as well as deliver it on the web. And there you can download those builds that you've done into any format you like. It's fantastic. Immediately, you can either fire that workload that you built straight up into an EC2 cloud, or you can bring it down and drive it straight onto SUSE Cloud OpenStack. So that integrates perfectly. That integration story then means that when you compare that with our capability to work on different architectures, be able to work with different platforms, you still have to get an idea of the breadth of open source, and you start to understand what I mean by not locking yourself in and being portable. There's some challenges. Some proprietary hardware works in slightly different ways, but on the whole, open source does offer that capability. We've also got a management piece. It's based on sorry, it's just popped out of my mind. A spacewalk project, sorry. That management piece is a very powerful tool to combine with your OpenStack distribution. So you get a full life cycle, the birth, the painful teenage years, the miserable middle age, and then the death. Oh no, that's a bit dark, isn't it? But you get a full life cycle, and at the end of it, you can maintain your product and back it out and come in with new technology. So again, you get freedom as you're working forward. We have a new release, SUSE Cloud 4. You might have seen it in the press. Really just highlighting a few of the points. Obviously, we're keeping up with Icehouse. We've got a very rapid deployment on our support. Right now, we've chosen to do differently than HP. We're mimicking the upstream. So we're keeping up with the upstream with a very short lag of a couple of months. The reason being that we know once it settles down, and actually I know it might be a year or two away, but it's going to become more formalized. Remember, it's only 4 years old, this thing. It's still toddling around in many ways. So we have to just keep with the dynamism that's going to be there just in the way we had to keep with that when Linux first came about. Culturally, we're used to that. That's fine. 2. Yeah, well, we promised to be within 2 months, so it might only be very short, but our commitment is 2 months on the...
Podium voor de kunst komt Meetup LinkedIn. Podium 1, Cloud VPS. Podium 3, Cisco.
I shouldn't have overran, should I?
Kunst, Meetup LinkedIn. Podium 1, Cloud VPS. En podium 3, Cisco. Dank u.
Thank you. That's another Dutch word now. Yeah, so we try and mimic it very closely because it's just so dynamic, and that's the only way we can see of taking it forward. We do work very closely with our partners, and it's getting closer and closer all the time. Incidentally, all those people are here. All those people are developing on this platform in open source, upstream, as we are. So that's a natural thing. Importantly, I talked about an install server, an admin server, that helps you get a very rapid deployment of this thing. We actually deliver it in appliance form on that build platform that I talked about earlier. I think I'm being told to wind it in. We can do a 3 to 5 days, very quick proof of concept if you want that. My customers generally are taking a little longer over such a decision. And some of the big firms we work with, I'm seeing some nodding heads, are taking a lot longer over that decision. So that's fine. We can work with both models. But we can do things quickly. Don't get confused. It's not that difficult to get up and working once you've thought it through. We also deliver a specialized package to deliver the solution to you quickly and effectively to get you up and running. We don't just throw it at you and walk away. Okay, everybody, I've overrun by a few seconds, so I can't take questions. Thank you very much for your forbearance. Cheers.